5, 4,
3, 2, 1.
That was a terrible clap by me. My hands don't work properly.
Shall we do it again?
Yeah, right. Okay, 5, 4,
3, 2, 1.
Right.
I don't. Have you forgotten how to clap? Is this because of the tumour?
Possibly, yes. Right. Look,
is that even going to work?
Podcasts. A Frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast Captain Slog. Its ongoing mission to explore strange new episodes, to seek out new jokes and new references, to split infinitives that no one has split before. Captain Slog, Stardate 45, I think. These are the continued voyages of me, Eddie Edwards, and my colleague, Mr. Mark Bench, as we trek our way through all of Star Trek. How you doing, Mark?
Yeah, good, yeah. Yeah, great, yeah. What's happened this week? Not a lot. I haven't been looking at the news recently, as I told you earlier. I've now gotten to the, as I, some people say, Mark, don't worry about it, man. You haven't been bringing up the fact that you've gone gluten-free in every conversation. Don't be worried about that, right? But I've gone gluten-free recently, and I think it's helping me really get to the base of why I'm just sad and angry all the time. Which for years I was just like, well, the world's coming to an end. Everyone's going to be going to war for water. Why bother even trying? Everything's fucked, etc. That's just how I felt all the time. And now I don't feel like that all the time until I look at the news. So I haven't been looking at the news. I've mainly been playing Elden Ring, to be honest, which I believe I may have stated at some point on this podcast I would never do, because I don't understand the appeal of something being really difficult and frustrating, and the only reward you get from persevering at it is getting better at it. But now that I've gone gluten-free, Eddie, I have returned to Elden Ring.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know Elden Ring actually rarely for a computer game, completely free of gluten. You can't play Metal Gear Solid, there's tons of gluten in that.
No, there's loads of bread in it. There's no bread in it, in fact. Unlike most fantasy RPGs, as far as I'm aware, there is no bread. Your health is replenished by drinking from a flask of red liquid.
Gluten-free red liquid.
Yep.
What's that? Strawberry milkshake? I don't know. Is there gluten in milk?
No.
Okay, yeah. So it's strawberry milkshake, I assume.
It is annoying though, because it's like I genuinely want to go vegan, and I have for a long time. I just don't have. Look. I know you don't want to hear this, vegans, but my opinion on animal welfare is basically I don't give a shit. Like, I think a lot of vegan activism is all about how terrible things are for animals, and I'm like, to me, a cow is just an aging barrel for a cheeseburger. Like, I don't. You might not like that opinion, but that's my opinion, and showing me cows getting slaughtered isn't gonna. I'm not an idiot. I know where cheeseburgers, delicious cheeseburgers, come from, but you can appeal to me. My sense of not wanting the planet to die, and I feel like they should kind of lean more on that. But the problem is, the vegan alternatives generally tend to be made of things that are made of gluten.
Yeah, gluten intolerance and veganism don't have much overlap. No. It's not like lactose intolerance where you're really on to a winner if you've got that and you want to be vegan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You've rolled a 20 in the form of a 4.
But you rolled 2 4s simultaneously, so it was still a win.
So how you doing? How's your week? How's your head?
My body is a lot like the UK at the moment, in that the right side of it isn't working properly. Right, so I've basically like,
and the left side of it is happy to just sit there and let it happen without doing anything.
The left side is doing nothing for his own advantage. He's letting the right side fail, and I would be appreciating this as a period in which we could be excited about the leadership of the left, but I worry that the left is even still thoroughly ineffective as well. This is the thing, like, even though my right hand isn't working properly at the moment, I'm still using it instead of using my left hand, because I know that my left hand isn't supposed to work properly. So yeah, what I've lost is I seem to have lost, hopefully temporarily, fine motor control on my right side, which is really noticeable in like my hand, but not as noticeable in your leg until you try to do anything with your foot, like walking, and then suddenly it goes, oh. And are you using the same like motor skills for your foot a lot more than you think you are? So that's been fun.
Yeah, watching you try to clap to sound sync this earlier was hilarious. And I can only hope that any permanent disability is just as joyful to the people around you.
Watching me try and clap I probably had the same confused look on my face that my girlfriend had. I made her watch Don't Hug Me. I was scared.
It's up there with like the first couple of weeks when a relative has Alzheimer's. Like when they just forget your name and all that. That's funny.
It's funny. It's like any joke. It's funny at first. Yeah. It's just going to be. It'll get old if it keeps going on. But if it is a permanent disability, then at least it should make it easier to get on the last leg. So that's that.
Yeah, what's the criteria like? Because well, first of all, what's Josh Widdicombe got going on?
He's not disabled. He's just from Devon.
Yeah, because you're looking at a spectrum, right? The last leg is obviously a spectrum of disabilities. Because you get Josh Widdicombe at one end, and you get what's the other, Matt somebody or other? What's his name?
Yeah, I can't remember his name. I don't watch the last. The thing is, Josh Widdicombe does. Anybody who thinks are terrible people, Josh Widdicombe has a career outside of the last leg. Alex something.
Alex. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to.
And then Adam Hills.
Yeah.
He's the guy that's only got one leg. Yeah. And then he's missing, what is it, one leg, and he sort of has like I think it's I can't remember the name of the condition that he has.
Alex Brooker, that's it.
Alex Brooker, yeah, that's it. Apologies, Alex Brooker. I know you're a loyal listener. But he obviously has like it's not thalidomide. That's like quite reductive to say.
No, it's
but he has
the world's
sort of this
smallest pup.
It's what?
Slid mud arms. What's the name?
he has like a similar condition to what the thalidomide kids had, but so he's like pretty, I'd say fairly substantially disabled. I imagine he gets about and he does what he wants and all that, and he's able to do DIY projects or whatever. But you are less disabled than both him and Adam Hills.
Yeah.
Once you get past Adam Hills, you're definitely a shoe-in for the last leg. But he's the first hurdle you have to hit.
I genuinely, this week, I went round to my friends to play D&D, which involved the tube journey. And I am a fairly large, fairly in-shape human being by appearances. So the internal struggle that I have with whether or not it's acceptable to take the priority seats on the tube is because I know that I should be allowed to get them, because I could fall over at any moment. But nobody else on that tube is going to believe me. I'm thinking of getting a cane. I don't need one, but I want to have one with me so people will believe that I have problems.
No, what you've got to do, right, is if anyone gives you the side eye when you've taken the priority seat, just hit them with one of these. Just go, yeah, wait till you see this. And then try to clap and fail.
Speaking of failures, this podcast...
If you try to snap your fingers, they're going to give you the whole tube, the whole carriage.
Speaking of failures, this podcast was taken on a trip around the London Marathon just this week gone. And I think we should shout out our mate James, did run the London Marathon and did lose. He failed to come first. So, James, just next, if you're going to keep trying, I don't think you cut out for it.
Well done, James. I'm genuinely quite proud of you. You look incredible. And I'm really looking forward to listening to you and Jacob's NFL podcast just as soon as I finish the audible version of the novelization of Ghostbusters 2. Would you like to know some facts from the novelization of Ghostbusters 2?
Yes, of course.
So the Ecto 1 and the Ecto 1A are definitely different cars.
Okay.
Lewis specifically sets that out.
Okay.
The line where that's it. That's the only thing I've really been. I'm like, I don't know this already. The only other thing is that Vigo's Scourge of Moldavia, Wrath of Carpathia, that one, the one that I can never remember in full, was originally longer, slightly longer. And he would say it every time that he appeared. And the characters would start, like Janosch especially, would just start getting sick of it. Which you do get a little bit in the film, where he's like, "Oh, command me, Lord," and all that. But he's just like, "Yep, Mountain of Skulls. Yep, I've heard it. Yep, Castle."
Yeah, it's a good joke technically, but you are having to bore the arse off your audience to tell the joke. It's a long walk through the punchline. I feel. I can understand why it got cut.
I feel like yes, but here's how I would do it. I would do it twice, right? I would do it twice in its entirety. The first time Janosch is like, the sorrow of Moldavia, the sat on a throne of blood, like being really into it. And then the second time he's like, and he's just kind of nodding along, just waiting to get to his point. And then the third time, you would have another character, probably Dana, when she's in the museum at the end, and Vigo comes up on the painting and starts talking to Janosch, and that's when Janosch is like, "Yep, Mountain of Skulls. Yep, I've heard this, Vigo. They're coming. Like, yeah, they've got the Statue of Liberty, and also in the novelization, they specifically set out that that it would be Jackie thingy higher and higher, Jackie Wilson. They mentioned that in the book. And sorry, I've remembered lots of things. There is extra scenes in the novelization that were supposed to be in the film that you see in the montage of them actually investigating the slime. Because the slime has nothing to do with Vigo. Vigo is just taking advantage of that situation. Okay. So the slime is just made by New York. It just happens. And Spengler at one point says, "Oh, it happens all the time. I mean, look at Nero, look at Nazi Germany." And I'm like, oh, yeah, I can see why they cut that out. Like, just anywhere there's a lot of hate, this stuff just builds up. So Vigo and the slime are essentially unconnected. That's mental. Yeah.
So it could have just been so that's like Ghostbusters 3. Ghostbusters gets dragged to hell. The version we were supposed to get. That could have, like I said, that could have worked. Big slime hand drags the city down. Yeah.
Yeah. But there you go. I know, and James, I'm sure your podcast is great.
Yeah, I'd have to give it a listen at some point, especially because it's probably going to help me set my fantasy team. But I suppose we should talk about this episode of Star Trek.
Yeah.
This Klingon-y one.
What was the plot, Eddie?
Some Klingons had been put into cryostasis and had been sent off on a mission to blow up some place. They were waking up after 75 years and they needed to convince them somehow, come up with a plan to convince them that the war's over and we're out of peace, so they didn't destroy a bunch of Federation settlements. Which it seems like it should have been like they spent quite a long time arriving at the plan, which was to go, look, we've got a Klingon. That wouldn't be happening if we were still at war.
He's in charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
But without that, how would we have gotten to the romantic, not plot?
Yeah, the subplot is more the plot that they are sent an emissary who is half human, half Klingon, which is apparently very difficult to achieve genetically, despite the fact that like there's like multiple half human, half Klingons throughout Star Trek.
Brianna Torres is half and half, right?
Yeah. So I don't know what that is, but I like the character Kayla.
Did you know that she's played by... I forgot to write this down. I think it's Susie someone or other, who also played Salar, the Vulcan doctor in the Data has been taken over by an old man episode.
And that was And she's a good actress.
Originally, Tracy Torme, who leaves at the end of this season and was a great... I guess they weren't really the showrunner, but I think they were the head writer at one point. So originally the plan was to have Worf and Salar be in a relationship and have that be an interesting romantic thing. And Salar was supposed to come back in this episode or in an episode like this, but then the writers went, no, we're going to put in a Klingon love interest for Worf, to which Tracy Torme said, but it's so obvious, like a Klingon and a Vulcan in a relationship. Of course, it's so obvious that's what would be so much more interesting. But no, so they just got back the same actress.
There's a lot in this episode that you could... So, for example, there is a point, like, they go to the hollow deck, which Deanna recommends to Kayla as, why don't you go use the fuck box, basically, to unwind. And,
we have Roombas that mop it down after every session. It's pretty great.
Yeah, and her and Worf fight Skull Guy again. Good returning character, Skull Man. And then they bang.
Yep.
And then Worf's like, okay, so we should get married immediately. I think that you can tell a lot about... Right, all I'm going to say is Gene Roddenberry deciding that the signs that the Klingons are a savage culture is long-term monogamous relationships. Tells you a lot more about Gene Roddenberry than it does about Klingons or the social attitudes that they might have. There's marks of Roddenberry all over this episode, and I'm a bit.
I 100% agree. And the bizarre thing is that we haven't really seen anything like this before. Like, Riker's definitely fucked a Klingon.
Yeah.
He probably did it when he was on that ship. There was one that was giving him the eyes.
Yeah.
He's probably... I thought for sure that this episode was going to be about him banging Kayla.
He definitely wants to bang Kayla the minute she arrives.
What do you think... Right, I'm going to get in a comfortable position with this.
Okay.
What do you think is the agreement between Troy and Riker? Like, because to me, it feels like they have an agreement, but it's like, look, we're on a ship. Obviously, we very much have feelings for each other. We very much love each other, but this is a Star Trek that we are on, a next generation of Star Trek, if you will, Deanna. And so we can. First of all, I like to think this is how he explained it to her, and she's just sitting there in silence. First of all, I'm the first officer, right? So I'm going to have to do quite a lot of what's that word? Like, sort of, being an emissary, like going out there and representing the Federation, and I'm gonna and sometimes Sometimes it's planets of just otherworldly, beautiful women, Deanna, and I am just a man. So I feel like if don't me know, I want to be tied down by you. In many senses of that phrase, but and don't get me wrong, you are the hottest chick on this bridge most of the time. Now, because Beverly's away. But here's the thing. Obviously, I want to keep this going, and I eventually do want to have children with you. One of whom dies. Spoilers. But I feel like I can't be boxed in, Deanna, with this. What? With this, so, if I want to fuck a Klingon, you have to let me. So, love, Will Riker, envelope, slipped under the door.
And then it slipped under the door. Ran away. When the first episode, it's addressed that they had a relationship, and he'd gone, "Oh, I'm Mr. Career Man," and she'd been like, "Oh, okay, so you want to put your career ahead of our relationship," and now they've both end up stationed on the flagship of the Enterprise, which proves that he could have stayed with her and had a career quite easily. But they both ended up on the same ship, and he's like, "Look, at some point in the future, I'd like to do a relationship with you, but let's just put a pin in that now, and I'll pretend it's because of my career, but actually, it's because I want to bang more space women." Yeah.
And then she has a look on her face, and Riker's like, "I mean, come on, have you ever seen women from Ireland?"
I think the more interesting question this episode presents is, we were told in season 1 that Worf doesn't like having sex with Klingon women, with human women, because they're too fragile. He didn't say he'd blow a load like a shotgun through this to back, but it's implied. Now, we're also then told that Kayla's dad is Klingon and her mother is human. So does she have like a cast iron vagina?
No, I think he's just really into feet. Because as a feet lover, you can be quite gentle. That's what I mean. You don't want to break them. So I reckon that he brings himself to almost completion between the soles of her gorgeous little feet, and then when he feels the vinegar strokes coming on, he sort of calls out. She stops reading her book, and then she manoeuvres herself down to like sit on his cock just as it. Because that's the thing about Klingons, right? Is Klingon ejaculation stronger?
Well, I mean, we don't even know.
You wouldn't think so, would you?
We don't even know the construction of the alien penis in question. Could have tendrils and
because I guess like your ability to shoot cum isn't really it's never really used as like a measurement of manhood, is it? Like dick size, 100%, right? Your dick size shouldn't be, but can be used as a measure of how manly you are. I mean, look at Willem Dafoe, right? But famously the biggest dick in Hollywood. Famously, they literally have to bring in a body double for nude scenes for Willem Dafoe because producers think people wouldn't believe that it was him. Apparently, it's so big it looks fake. But
it's a lot of Willem Dafoe's movies actually get second billing.
But like you're never like, oh man, I go off like a shotgun. Like I'd never hear that and be impressed. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe at some point in Klingon like evolutionary history though, it was like a defense mechanism. like you'd get like woken up for like in the night by like an attack on your camp, you'd roll over, bang, off the take him down like you've just blasted the super shotgun on a cacodemon in a corridor, right? It's okay. I've got a question for you.
Go on,
Mark. If you were to be put in a Class 9 probe, because it would make everything a little quicker, right? Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to spend 9 hours compressed in this little probe, no room to move. You're just going to lay down and get fired into space and hope that the Enterprise picks you up so you can tell that the Enterprise, give them the message and tell them of your brilliant plan to blow up the Klingon ship before they wake up. All right. Which is terrible. Why did she need... Anyway. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how skin tight would you want your clothing to be for a mission like that? I'd personally I'd wear pajamas, something a bit comfortable.
Yeah.
But
I'm currently wearing a hoodie, which is just a hoodie with like fleece in it, and it's oversized. Like the idea, I think, is it's to emulate that feeling that women have when they wear the larger boyfriend's hoodie, which is something. Look, as a man, obviously there's already quite a lot going against me in daily life. Do you know what I mean? There's quite a lot of things I lose out on, just again as a man. And one of the things I've always wondered about is, how does it feel to wear the clothes of a much larger human who could crush you at a moment's notice? What does that feel like? Women are so privileged to get that, to essentially have that on tap.
Yeah, I mean, I'd take it over wearing headphones any day of the week.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'd want to be. I mean, first of all, I'd be like, can we? Well, first of all, can I wear pajamas? And then be like, but we need to make the missile pretty, like, a little bit bigger. I'm like, could you do it? Because like I know that this is your job, and I know that you're fitting me in, but at the same time, I am the emissary. I am the title of the episode, right? So could you make it just comfortable enough for me to wear pajamas? And then they'd be like, we've done that, and I'd be like, I mean, if I've got pajamas on, I might as well be able to move about. Can you just make it big enough for me to move about in?
I can't believe that a Class 9 probe is faster than, say, a shuttle.
Yeah. I'd be like, can you do me a favour? Do you know that probe? Can you just tie that to a shuttle? And I'll just, hold on, don't let me leave yet, because I need to log into my Audible account while I've got Wi-Fi to download the novelisation of Men in Black 2. What are we looking at? 3.5 hours? Oh. Better get 3 as well then. Who reads that? Oh, Phil Lamar. They paid good money for that. He's a good actor. Who does the second one? Maurice LaMarche. Oh, what a trip this is going to be.
On one occasion, while travelling back from a festival, we had my mate's car, and it only had a tape player and a radio. So we only had the tape. It was his mum's car that he was borrowing, and it only had the tape that, like, we were in the car, which was like I think it was Now from 1993. Okay, so it did have Mysterious Girl, so that was a win, right? Okay, which led to a great music knowledge game of, without looking at the label, can you guess what tracks will be on this album? But so we listened all the way down. On the way back, we were listening to the audiobook of Jurassic Park. Okay, now
it's so perfect.
Now, I just want to say this, right? I'm not going to say that the book of Jurassic Park is racist, but I will say that the reading of the book Jurassic Park that we had was racist, because the person doing the reading had made the incredible choice that, where possible, he should try to match the accents of the dialogue that was being used. So a lot of the plot of Jurassic Park, I don't know if you're aware of this, Mark, takes place in South America. Now, I would argue that if I was going to provide the voice of a Mexican paleontologist, that wouldn't be the same voice that I would use as to for a Mexican day labourer. I would imagine their command of English is such that they probably don't sound like an extra from a Speedy Gonzales cartoon.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, if you can seek out that Jurassic Park on it's well worth a listen.
100%. I'll be listening to that on the next road trip that Laura and I go on, because unfortunately the Magic, the Magic Radio, they used to have a channel that was just musicals, and they binned
brilliant.
it because Laura and I were the only ones that were listening to it. But I'll get that on the go. You mentioned something there that clicked. What was it I was going to talk about? Fuck.
Can we talk about this? This TV, this episode has one of my favourite things from the 80s, 90s TV era, and it's two characters have a moment that is clearly going to lead to them fucking. They look at each other, they lock eyes, then we fade to black. The adverts happen, and they fuck while the adverts are going on. And then we come back in to somebody putting on a boot. Right?
Classic.
That is one of my favourite manoeuvres in 90s TV. When you go, we're going to have an ad break now, and this is when our characters are going to fuck, because we can't show any of that. But we'll imply it heavily.
What would you put on? To show that you've just had advert sex, what would be the thing that you'd put on?
See, I think putting on the shoe is you've gone too far ahead. But I would say sliding your jeans back on. Just it comes back as a buckling up a belt.
Yeah, because I was thinking maybe putting on a watch, or just specs on.
Do you take your watch off for sex? Quite
no, because I just got a new watch and I'm really excited about this watch. It's a Casio, right? So it's like the step up from your standard comedians watch. If you know any stand-up comedians, they all have the same watch. It's a weird, bizarre phenomenon that happens. They all have this one particular Casio. So this one's a bit better. It has world time. I can find out in America. Oh, nope. In New York City, it's 10 to 2.
Okay.
Would you like to know what time it is in Chicago?
Yes.
10 to 1. Would you like to know what time it is in Los Angeles?
Is it 10 to 12?
It's 10 to 11. It's a little bit further away. So I got this watch, but it's from the 80s and it's a digital one. So I wear it all the time because it makes me feel like a fancy travelling Japanese businessman.
If you see, this is the thing. In the world of Star Trek, you can't put the watch on because you keep the watch on during sex, because otherwise you're going to miss out on those steps. So you want to keep that on to hit your base, especially on board the Enterprise. I imagine people are very worried about hitting their steps. There's no outdoors. So
yeah, and the holodeck's just currently being cleaned, so you can't go to a ski resort.
Yeah, you just gotta go around deck 14 over and over again. Well, you just doing circuits, you weirdo.
What if the last thing you put on in Star Trek is your comm badge, and that's when you find out that your comm badge has accidentally been broadcasting this to the entire, not to the bridge because they would let you know, but to the lower deck section. Because what they're gonna do? Do you know what I mean? Do you think some fucking lower decker's gonna come in and be like, Lieutenant Worf, we can hear you. No.
See, the idea of the clipping on the comm badge, if in the pros of pressure, I'm not going to take my comm badge off separately from the top.
Hold on.
I'll leave that stuck
over here. This is quite
so that doesn't accidentally get buzzed, so we broadcast that.
Yeah.
You begin banging, you hear the rest of the ship, here's the whistle. Woo!
Do you know what would be quite useful, right? So say you've just banged in the fuck box, or the holodeck,
That's
right?
the name of my metal band.
Yeah. And you're wandering around and you're like, oh man, the advert's over and I can't find my boot. We're on the last advert. It's an advert for a TV show that's on the channel that we are currently watching, so we are at DEFCON 3, I can't find my other boot. Well, the easiest thing you can do there, because you have the benefit of a holodeck, is that you say, holodeck off, and then presumably the boot will just fall to the ground from wherever it was. Then holodeck back on. Yeah. This isn't my first rodeo.
Or if you're really worried, you just holodeck up a boot. Because you're only gonna be on screen for a few minutes,
and then you get back
Once
to the
we
bridge.
to another scene. Then you can go back to like looking for your shoe.
Yeah, you get to the bridge and you're sort of you're sort of limping because you're sort of shorter on one side because one boot's just made out of light. Car's like, Worf, are you all right? And then you're like, and you're looking around suspiciously because they've been looking at the logs, right? They know that you and Kayla were in there. They think that she's injured you during sex, when in reality you've just lost a boot.
Yeah. Well, like
but,
you say,
but what would you do? You wouldn't correct anyone because you'd be like, yeah, we fucked so hard that I got hurt.
If I was... See, because this is the thing, because I was going to say, like, there's always the chance that somebody's been watching, because we know that they have access to records, but knowing that Worf's gone in the holodeck with Kayla, I would say would be a lower priority than, like, for example, knowing that Jean-Luc Picard wasn't on a fucking ship anymore, and that took him like a fucking half an episode to fucking realise last time that happened, so fuck knows.
Yep.
Okay, I have a really big a question that I can't work out. Right. Worf, at the end of this episode, is dressed as a Klingon captain.
Yeah.
And pretending to be captain of the Enterprise and telling the Klingons on the Tong to stand down. And he gets up and he walks towards the screen. What does that do? Because I assume, like we always get on the Enterprise, we get like a zoomed in. You see very much what you see over Zoom where we're recording this.
Yeah. In
that you get like a part. I assume that's the same way going back, which means Worf walks past the camera.
So the way that I have always taken it is that the holodeck itself is the camera.
The view screen is the camera. Yeah.
That's technology that I think really needs to be developed, if nothing else than for one very inconvenient thing, which is that when you're speaking online, you generally aren't making eye contact.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's and that's really difficult. And they've created workarounds. I work on the internet and I have a workaround for it in just the way that I've set up my screens, so that if you looked at it, it would, for all intents and purposes, look like I'm making eye contact to you. Like, it looks like this. Yeah. I'm actually not looking at you. I'm looking at something slightly above the camera. But yeah, so I think it's that, and I think that the view screen knows when things need to be dramatic. So get an extreme close up on this Ferengi. But what would essentially happen is that Worf, like, the focal length would change, like the perspective would change, but he would.
They're not just getting it.
Yeah, and I think that the screen does know what to focus on.
Or alternatively, among Klingons, maybe it's considered more intimidating if they can just see your forehead ridges. Yeah. Like, so he's putting that right in front of the camera. And they're like, oh, he means business.
That's it. That's the way that's how they measure how serious you are in Klingon society. Is one, your forehead ridges, and two, how many Kleenex can you cleanly shoot through? from just a standard wank sesh. Like, we're talking like a porno that you've seen 2 or 3 times before. Nothing special, no candles or anything. Like, it has to be complete control conditions. How many sheets are you going through?
Not
to wipe. It has to be in the initial. Has to be in first contact. They call it.
It's a sheet of. It's a sheet of aluminium, and they just measure how deep the dent goes.
Just before you finish, Worf says, "Set phaser banks to stun."
I love in this episode that Deanna Troi has one of her great. Oh, I can sense that you're upset because you like moments, and it's because Kelly's just smashed a table, which you can clearly hear from the corridor.
Yeah. You all right in here?
I heard something psychically.
So yeah, so these Klingons, they don't know that Kronos and Earth have made peace.
Yeah.
That's
So
must be a lot. There must be a lot of them out there, eh?
that's an idea for an episode that I think would be more interesting than this. Would be like a shuttle crash on a planet with some stranded, like a group of like 10 or like less than 10, maybe like four or five stranded Klingons who've been there since the war.
Do you know what go on.
You have to get Gowron from the Klingon High Council to like come in and tell everyone the war's over.
So, people may have heard that in the aftermath of World War II, they discovered that there were some Japanese soldiers so deeply entrenched in the... It was obvious it was in the Pacific theatre, right? But I can't remember if it was jungles or on islands or whatever. I think it was one particular jungle. That there was some that just didn't know the war was over. And they just kept going about their drills. That's one of these things that you think... Well, the real story probably is a little bit different. And you're right, the real story is even crazier. Because they kept that up until, I believe, the early 60s. And the Japanese government had to... First of all, they, like, dropped leaflets over the jungle, just layering this jungle in leaflets because these guys were so well hidden that they didn't know where to deliver their mail to. So it was just leaflets saying, like, oh, the war's over, like, come home. But these guys were obviously like, this smells like a trap, so we're going to leave it. And I think eventually they had to send down, like, the emperor or the prime minister. And even then, they weren't convinced. They had to... it's been years since I've heard this story, but I believe that they eventually just had to dig up... Not literally. But they had to dig up, like, their old... field commander, like the one guy that they'd be like, yeah, he's definitely telling the truth. Like, there's no way that he would make that up. That's.
Can you imagine though, like, if you're in that scenario, because the Japanese did have a code, like a very specific code of honor, where they would never surrender. They would fight until the last man. So you're in the woods and you're in the jungle, and you go, what? You get into people trying to convince you the war's over, and you're just like, that's ridiculous. There's literally nothing could have possibly happened that could have made the Japanese people lose their zeal for war. And then you find out that the war is over. Imagine that being like, oh, so the war is over, yeah. Oh, so I can fucking go home and see my family. Oh, yeah. Where'd you live, by the way? Oh, number 1, Hiroshima way. That was because it's one thing that they were there for 70 odd years and they found out the war's over, but then also to like then have to like to be the guy like who's the commanding officer who has to say to him, yeah, the war's over, we lost, and then have the other side go, that's ridiculous, what could the Americans possibly have done, and then have to explain what the Americans did and just go, gee, what? Yeah.
Yeah, and then also for them to be like, oh man, so I take it we hate the Americans because of it, and they're like, actually, selling stuff to America is now the cornerstone of our entire economy, and also, have you seen this TV show where this talking dog fights ghosts?
And then having to go, but what? Like talking around too, but why? So we're friends with the Americans. How do our noble allies, the Germans, feel about this? Look. Here's the thing: there might have been a horrible war crime was committed against us, but just so you know, broadly speaking, we've accepted that America and the Western allies were in the right about the whole war thing, and we were in the wrong. It's that's ludicrous. And then I had to go, look, here's the list of the atrocities that the Germans committed that we're all aware of, and the ones that we as a country are refusing to take responsibility for.
I remember talking to my friend years ago. He was he was someone who was dating a friend of mine, and he was from Japan. But he'd grown up in Scotland, but he'd spent the first couple of years there in Japan. And I think his older brother had been there like a little bit longer, obviously, than he has. And I remember saying that to him. I was like, "How is the war taught in Japan?" He says it's fucking bizarre. He's like, because it's like, so anyway, 1939 there was a bit of a conflict, and then nothing really happened, and then in 1945 the Americans bombed us for no reason, and now we're real sad about it. It's like, what, are you serious? He's like, yeah, pretty much, man. Yeah, they don't.
Yeah.
They'll very much.
That's why there's a Nazi in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yeah, they'll super fucking like both sidism. What history? And I mean, don't get me wrong, we do that. Like, obviously, this isn't an attack on. Very good for a British person to be attacking how other countries teach imperialism.
I'm very specifically, I want to be clear, I'm very specifically talking about the example of World War II, which is possibly the only time in history that Britain was in the right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, there's a real good news, bad news situation, isn't it, for the first person to find, like you radio back in to like some soldier radio back in on DJ. I did, like, as the Allies expand across Europe, just go, I've got good news and I've got bad news. Do you want the good news or the bad? Well, what's the good news? We are definitely the good guys in this war. Okay, what's the bad news? Well,
yeah,
yeah. But yeah,
you know that phrase that you coined a while ago that you like to use in a very neutral term about a camp where you concentrate things. Yeah, that phrase is going to take on quite new meaning after this. I'm afraid, like that little mustache, it's going to be out for a few generations.
So, okay. You jump 70 years in the future from the middle of a war, right? And you've been cryo-frozen. These Klingons haven't just gone through that jump and being told that, like, the pieces that are happening, the war is over, all of that. These Klingons have also, you got to remember, they agreed to go be put in cryosleep for 70 years because you got to bring this point up, because Klingons just love war so much. And then they've got to the future, it's 70 years past, and, like, there's no war. Yeah. It's like, imagine if you were like put in cryosleep for 70 years, and when you woke up, they were like, "Oh, great! Welcome to the future. It's great here." And you go, "Oh, brilliant! Yeah." So here's a list of the we banned all mind-altering substances up to caffeine. What? Can you put me back in, please?
Yeah. Yeah, like imagine waking up in the Demolition Man future.
Oh,
yeah, be rubbish.
Do I get to be?
I mean, it'd be great. Like, people are doing well, but you know,
it's better than waking. What's the worst science fiction future to wake up in, excluding Planet of the Apes?
I guess Alderaan, the day after the Death Star leaves.
Yeah, Alderaan.
Well, that's the past, isn't it?
That's the past. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, Jason X.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
Oh, we just got you and this other guy frozen.
Because Judge Dredd, I guess, would be pretty awful. But it's a bit like The Handmaid's Tale. Like nothing happens in Judge Dredd that hasn't happened in real life.
Yeah.
It's just like, futurized.
Yeah, like if you're in the like bottom part of like one of the tower blocks, yeah, you have to deal with some shit because there's probably a gang. But equally, in my normal day-to-day life, there are like gangs exist. I just don't interact with them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
just I keep myself to myself. I have straightforward business dealings with gang members.
Yeah. I genuinely don't know. I actually can't think of any sci-fi dystopias. I guess like your fucking like your Logan's Run or whatever. I mean, if it was Logan's Run, we'd be fucked. We'd be dead.
Yeah, Blade Runner's okay to wait, like, because I'd leave. I'd get off Earth.
Yeah.
Quickly. all carbon, you get to be immortal, but it's a capitalist hellscape. I don't know. I think Mad Max is probably the worst. No, because you could enjoy, you'd have a lot of fun.
No, I wouldn't like to be in Mad Max. There's not a lot of internet going on.
Yeah, but they're okay, right? But okay, we know for a fact that in the Mad Max universe, you can, should you so choose, cover an entire vehicle with massive speakers and ride it through the desert while you play an electric guitar that shoots fire out of it. And I'm going to be honest with you, that's kind of what I want to do. I mean, it's not
I feel like there's places on Earth you could do that now. Like in Grimsby. Who's going to stop you?
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, as we learned from the Killdozer incident a few years ago, if you're willing to build an unstoppable monster machine, there's very little anybody can do about it.
Anything else to say about this episode?
I've got one small thing.
Go on.
Data doesn't know poker terminology, so at the beginning of the episode, he says he folds, but he doesn't say folds. He says bends, which is yet another piece of evidence in my theory that Data is the ship's bending unit. But also, Brent's there wasn't any. I can't. Brent Spinner can really shuffle cards.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah.
I guess that's just one of these things you teach yourself. Because the thing about actors, especially jobbing actors, they have a lot of time on their hands.
Yeah.
So that's why you tend to see, like, if you watch daytime TV game shows, especially in America, like The Price is Right and things like that, a lot of the people on there are actors and comedians because they tape on, like, a Tuesday afternoon. They don't have anything else to do. So, like, Aaron Paul, you can find. Someone else.
I genuinely think it's also that you get to learn these skill sets. There must have been there might have been a role that needed card shuffling, because there's an interview with I think it's Orlando Bloom where he's like, oh, I know 3 separate styles of sword fighting that are thousands of years apart. I can ride it. I know how to steer and ride a chariot. And he's listing off all these whiskers. He goes, I would have been the... And he's like, if I'd been around 500 years ago, I'd be the man. But it's not not useful. Like the guy who does... I know the guy who plays Shadow in American Gods.
Yeah.
He learned how to do the actual coin magic.
Yeah.
So that's an actual skill that guy has, which I respect the hell out of, because this is the sort of thing I'd want to learn. Because it's all well and good to be oh, I've got a Marvel movie coming up, I've got to get it in amazing shape, but I'd much rather but I've also got to learn how to throw cards.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be so cool.
Yeah.
I agree. I'd like to... I don't know, Blade does a pretty cool thing in Blade 2, where he has a wooden stake and he sort of twirls it in his fingers really quickly, so that Ron Perlman can't see where it's going, and he just slaps him. So I'd like to learn. I'd like to learn something so impressive that Ron Perlman lets me slap him.
So that's So just famously, then that's the blade spinning a stake trick. Or the other thing we know for a fact definitely impresses Ron Perlman is making a shot of a basketball over the back of your head from across the room.
Oh, you're gonna have to explain that reference.
So if you watched Alien Resurrection, which if you have watched it, I'm sorry that happened to you, because it's not a good film. But there is a scene where Sigourney Weaver as character Ripley throws a basketball over her head and it goes swish through the net, and it's amazing, and it almost immediately cuts. And the reason it immediately cuts is that was the first take. There was no special effects set up. Sigourney Weaver just nailed that shot. And the reason they have to cut is because Ron Perlman completely breaks character.
Yeah. I actually have heard different. I've heard that it's like the 40th take.
Oh, I heard it was the first, but
I don't know. Let's not look this up.
Yeah, let's not for once.
If you know the answer, tell us in the comments. Innit? That helps engagement.
Yeah, and also leave a review. Give us 5 stars somewhere.
If you've been annoyed at literally anything that we've said, please tell us.
Yeah.
And you know
we've
what?
gotten
Tell us 8 times.
And if we've got vast swathes of Star Trek lore wrong, inform us of that, and we'll not take that on board. But
I am
we'll
going
be
to
thankful that you've offered it.
Switch, in my opinion, of whether shuttles have warp or not.
Right.
I'm just going to flip-flop on it every other episode.
They must have. They must have. They're functionally useless items if they don't.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that every time I get it wrong, someone will correct me. Because that's what engagement is. Motherfuckers.
Like, I think in certain, I think it's a Voyager, they're called the runabouts.
Yeah.
They send out, and that I believe they might not have warp, because I believe the term runabout implies something different. But yeah, space is really big.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Well.
Yeah.
Thanks for. Bye.